Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. We are back, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create environments and ecosystems where people can thrive. Ultimately, if this is your first episode, we want to be able to always leave you with practical skills, practical strategies, methodologies, techniques, resources, and tools that you could be able to use not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not at the next calendar year, the next quarter, but today. We want to always be able to start with some foundation. We want to invite you into the conversation, and we want to provide you some expertise, some advice that you can either take and it can scale up the work that you're doing, or you can come back later and be able to utilize it when it's time for you and when it's the season for you to be able to utilize it. So let's get to it. Dan, how you feeling?
I'm good, man. It's 80 plus here today. This is great, except for the fact it's going to go to the 40s tomorrow. But we need this light, man. We need this light in our life.
You know, it's interesting. I feel like I'm the only person that never checks the weather, and I get dressed and I'm literally always wearing the wrong thing. It's like when it's hot, I have on a full suit. When it's cold, I have on shorts and a polo. When it's raining, I have on like suede shoes. When it's like just unbearably hot, I have on like a suede coat. Like it's just the weirdest thing.
I mean, shout out to Dad. When I was growing up and I wanted to watch cartoons and we woke up at the same time, he would make me watch the news every morning while I ate my cereal. And not only does my name rhyme with many things, I was Dan the Weatherman because I always knew what the weather was going to be like.
Dan the Weatherman.
Yeah, so that's it's one of the many Dan those nicknames.
Nah, I love it. And today, you know, it's interesting. We were having a conversation before we got on about a lot of things. But one of the things that really resonated with me is today we're going to talk about the slow burn of relationships and how relationship building in the nonprofit space doesn't have to suck if you do it intentionally, if you understand how to do it with integrity, and if you bring people through a process of invitation and immersion rather than just transaction. And earlier today, crazy story, Dan. I should have screenshotted you this madness that I received in my LinkedIn. And for this person, I hope you're watching in because I'm talking about you. I got a LinkedIn message earlier today that like jumped directly to, and it's interesting because I thought it would spam. It jumped directly to saying, "Hey Kyle, we're building something meaningful at this specific organization. We're currently looking for volunteers who want to give time and skills to, and then donors to help us save with, you know, I don't want to tell the organization. And then community and corporate partners for our upcoming events. If you believe in second chances and strengthening communities, we'd love to connect and explore how you can be a part of this work. Your support creates real impact for individuals rebuilding their lives, ready to get involved, visit, or click the website." I was like, all right, I can dig it. So then I responded and I said, "Hi," and then their first name. And I said, I love the directness. I'd like to learn more about you and the organization before engaging with anything. Do you have time to connect over the next few weeks briefly? I feel like that was kind. I feel like that was inviting. And then the response was literally a volunteer form. And if you can't volunteer, here's the Amazon wish list. And I was just like blown away. I'm like, what is happening? Like I'm being punked. Somebody pinch me. Oh my God.
It's a bot.
It has to be a bot. And then they're calling me Kyle S, which like no one calls me Kyle S. It's really just like, it's like, what is happening here? So we have to do better. We have to do better. And if this is your first episode, look, we like to do hot takes. We like to keep it real here because these are the issues that are stopping us from actually building relationships with potential donors. These are the things that are stopping us from building relationships with people that can be potential volunteers. And I'm genuinely always interested in serving and donating and doing something, but it has to be able to connect to me, or I'm willing to connect you with another individual or an organization that is more in alignment with what you're doing. So, Dan, just talk about it, man. Like, am I seeing this from the wrong perspective?
No, I mean We talk about, we've said this, I think I've said this on a few podcasts. In the world in which AI is supposedly taking over everything that
Yeah.
we're doing, right? In the world in which it's taking over everything that we're doing, everyone's like, oh, these people are going to be losing their jobs, they're going to do this and that. I have this alternate belief that personal touch, intentional conversations, small businesses, right? How they've come back. People want curated experiences, they want intentional conversations. That is how you do this work great. There are uses for AI and tools, 100%. We
Yeah.
both use them, right? I've used them in previous roles. But I like to think, even on a LinkedIn, like even if you're double copying, like if you're copying the same thing to send to a bunch of people, like
Yeah.
still make it you, right? There's nothing more annoying. I remember I reached out to a CRM about like being a partner or about the conference, and their AI agent came up. And like and there was like a whole email conversation where they like responded back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fine. I knew they were an AI agent, but I'm also like, I don't know. I just felt, I was like, they kind of felt like it was dehumanizing me a little bit. I don't know why, but I was just like, I just want to have a conversation with someone, like like a real person, like, because I had a feeling and I knew, because it's been 5 weeks, I think, since I filled out this form and the bot reached out to me and said this, that, and the other. And I was like, should I fill out another form? And they were like, no, that's going to make the process take longer. And I was like, so I'm just supposed to sit here and like wait because your company doesn't have enough real people on it to actually answer my questions and talk
No,
to me?
literally.
Like, I don't know. I don't think that's an ego thing. But Kyle, I remember I had a human conversation like that in my
Mm-hmm.
last role. I was talking to a chief strategy officer from this relatively large company. Like, this individual had gone in to fix things, and we connected. They had connections to athletics. They wanted to create a scholarship. They were interested in being like an
Mm-hmm.
in-kind donor for their services. But this individual was always busy. So I had to stay on them. So like we would talk, I'd send follow-up items, I'd check in 2 or 3 weeks later, no response, check in a week or two later, no response, give it a break, try it again. And then we'd occasionally have conversations, but they ended up canceling like 2 or 3 meetings in a row after we were supposed to speak. And they were like, oh, I'm
Oh
so
my God.
busy. I'm so busy. Oh, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like it's fine. Let's reschedule. Then they wouldn't reach out to reschedule. And the last conversation we had, that individual liked to text. And I reached out to them and I was like, hey, so and so, like, here's some dates. I'd love for you to let me know when you're available. I know you've been so busy, so I just wanted to give you some dates so you didn't have to
Mhm.
think about it. Like, I didn't have a calendar link.
Yeah.
And they sent me back this like aggressive message that was like, you know, it was like, you obviously don't know about sales. Like, why are you being so pushy? Like, it was really rude. And I was like, whoa, man, like, this is like the same tone I've taken with everything. It was a very nice, and honestly, it wasn't even a direct email. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, text message. It was like, I was like chilling, like back. I was like, I don't even know if they're going to do it. And I was like, whoa. And then I responded back and I was like, hey, I respect that. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know where you're coming from.
It's
Like,
like
this is
relax.
obviously some issue you've got going on. Like, this is you. This is not me.
It's like this is a you problem.
And I was like, I'm done talking to you. Like, you're not worth, that's not worth my time. But we talk about that slow burn.
Hmm.
And, I think that people need to understand too, the slow burn is how you do it, right? That's how you build the deep relationships. But that slow burn is not always guaranteed.
Mm. When we say that it's not guaranteed, how I perceive that is that it's not always guaranteed that you're going to, one, get a response, two, that you're going to get a response that you want, and then three, if you do still then get a response, that you're potentially not going to get a result that you may want. In these donor conversations and just stakeholder conversations, let's call them that,
Mm,
I believe it's important to go into these meetings not wanting to ask for what you need, but a willingness to be able to give. And in order for us to have a willingness to give, we have to consider and understand, and like you always like to say, be curious on what that person needs. I had a phenomenal conversation with a woman earlier that's doing just cutting edge work and really helping organizations optimize their structures, their systems, their CRM systems from a nonprofit side. And it was literally the first 20 minutes of our 30-minute conversation it was really just a vibe. Like, we were talking about the weather, we were talking about dropping my dad off at the airport, talking about how she was on a call with someone and that person was literally on their phone the whole time, and she had to remind them, like, hey, like, we don't have to be on this call. And we were just talking about the fact that nonprofit work is more business building and nonprofit is just a tax status. And all of these amazing synergies and alignment of values and kids and family and all of these different things. And she's the breadwinner of a family of 5. And this is her second time back into entrepreneurship. And she's done a lot of strategy work at a big firm for 10 years. And she's doing all of these things. And I was able to glean and capture all of that in this 30-minute conversation. And literally, because there was so much connection and great energy on the front end of the conversation, I immediately was like, look, how can I help? Like, I didn't know what she did at the beginning. I was like, how can I help? How can we just work together? And I opened up with that because she was just the type of person that I would love to just hang out with. And a person that shared similar energy, similar values, similar perspectives. And not saying that it's not good to connect with other people that are not similar. But what I mean is, I think it's important in these conversations initially that we're having, or creating spaces and creating a condition where we can just be human beings and be genuinely interested and be genuinely curious and uplift that other person and share books and share our movie interests and be just human beings rather than major gift officers or fundraisers or all of these different things. I think it's important to just be. And these aren't the conversations that are happening, because I believe that if we have enough of those conversations, there will be a moment in the conversation where it gets actionable. So one of the action items was, all right, we got to get you on the podcast. She said the same thing about hers. Would love to write an article about the work that you're doing. We're thinking of a cross collaboration webinar. So like, now we identify ways to amplify our impact together. But if there's no foundation, then we don't even get to the point where we're able to work together, because we don't even really like each other. We haven't found a way to connect. So I think, be curious so that you can find and identify ways to connect. So curiosity creates connectivity, which then creates collaboration, which then allows you to be able to move the needle forward in your organization.
Yeah, I like that, Kyle. You had mentioned something when you were just speaking about that, and I don't remember what it was. Nope, I lost it. It's gone. But I think I think the whole point of that, Kyle, is sometimes new fundraisers or people who are new to fundraising but have been in the nonprofit world, they look at these scenarios and they may say, Kyle, I don't have anything to offer. I don't have it. And I think, it's very easy to feel inadequate in your work, especially something new, but especially in the nonprofit world where you're literally trying to change lives, right? You're trying to make large impacts locally, through your state, federally, nationally, whatever it is.
Yep.
And I think sometimes, and I've found this, sometimes you need to ask, right? And just be like, I'd love to meet with you, whether they have a connection or not. Usually if you're reaching out to someone, there's some sort of connection.
Yeah, right? Of course.
Maybe it's not individually, maybe it's tactically, maybe it's interest wise. But I think that sometimes when people get there, they're going to be like, well, Kyle, you're trying to think, what can you offer them? I don't know. I know all about this organization, but I don't know what I can offer them. I don't know what that means. And I think it's important to know, sometimes one of the most important things you can do is offer your time and an ear. There are so many prospects and donors who it's so much easier for them to talk to people they don't know, because people they do know might just be yes people. They might just listen to what they have to say, agree with everything. But if they can just have an ear just to talk and just let things flow how they should, and let you interact with it, sometimes they need that refresher, right? Because they're so used to being around the same people. So sometimes you can just offer an ear, right? Your time and an ear. But I think it's also important to remember, like, those are valuable. Your time is valuable. And if you go in there with the intention of like, I want to see if this person is interested in the work we're doing, or if they want to be part of it, giving them the time, your time, which is valuable, and then lending them an ear, which is also valuable too. Those are valuable to you as an individual.
Exactly.
And, I had a conversation earlier today, Kyle, and we were talking about how challenges turn into creativity, right? How when you're challenged, it forces you to reflect a certain way. And when you reflect, that immediately turns into creativity, because you're reflecting on the decision you made and if you should make another one or what the next step should be. And a lot of the time that forces you to be creative. And it's how do you build a bridge between it, right? And challenging someone could be curiosity, right? It doesn't have to be like the inherent challenge of like, you're wrong, right? But it could be the curiosity of why do you think that way, right? So how do you build a bridge from creativity to connectivity? Or sorry, how do you bridge from curiosity to connectivity and creativity, right? And I think that when you take those kinds of mindsets, when you meet someone and you give them your time and your ear, and you're curious about what decisions they've made, why they've made them, how they've gotten to where they are, that forces that person to feel more connected, because you're investing time and curiosity into them. So that's, and I think that goes back to what you started off with, what was like, well, that was a really direct message, but then you respond to it, and it's like, well, this is not a real person right now, right? Maybe this is a real profile, but it's automated. And it's like, that takes a lot of that away. If you're trying to reach mass people, sure. But like, maybe the second touch should be personal.
Right? It's interesting. I was talking to Dr. Pael Berry yesterday, that is really focusing on creating these immersive experiences at events. And what I thought yesterday is that her work solely focused on the events, but she was like, really, the events is the end. Like, I focus on the experience, every touch point with organizations, like how someone engages with your podcast, what that says about your brand, and how after the podcast, what is the next step and the follow-up, and when someone shows up to your event, and when they engage with your email list, and all of these different things. And I was like, gosh, like, that's amazing. And I think about that organization that I mentioned earlier in the conversation, like, that's my first touch point with this organization. Like, that is my experience with you. So if I see your brand, if I see your logo, if I meet a team member in person, that was my first experience with their organization. And I want anybody listening, I want you to really think about that. Like, what is the first set of experiences that someone has with you, your brand, your assistant, your email list, your volunteering event, with you on the call? Like, all of these different micro moments that create a macro perspective that potentially is shared with other people. And that perspective that is shared is either leading to you having more opportunities, or it taking away opportunities that you potentially need to be able to grow your organization forward. And we have to, I think there's a few ways that relationships cannot suck. And I believe, like, number one is we have to be able to, like you were saying earlier, Dan, respect people's time, respect their time, be curious when they're using their voice, because I believe that there's something that we can gain by listening to people, and we gain more when we're willing to give more. So just listen to people, hear their perspective, hear their heart, hear their passion, and then identify ways like, hey, I have this person for you. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you can get them one step closer to where they're supposed to go. I do believe that when you make these commitments of helping someone, we have to then follow through on those commitments. We have to take intentional time to invest in people on these calls and invest in these conversations, whether it's a 15-minute call. Like if you don't have time in your calendar, then block 2 days out of the week, make 15-minute calendar slots. And if you only have time for 30 minutes, just connect with 2 people potentially a week. And then we have to be grateful, because there could be a lot of spaces and times where people don't want to connect, where people don't even want to get on your calendar at all. And I believe that the best way to be able to build relationships is come in them with a attitude and a mindset of what can I give rather than what can I gain from this conversation. Like every episode here on this podcast is not about like what Dan and I can gain from you following, from you subscribing, from you sharing. No, our goal is every conversation is like, hey, what can we give to the audience today that helps you get one step closer to where you're supposed to be in your leadership journey, or where you're supposed to be in your nonprofit journey? And how can we provide something that at least gets you one step closer to advancing your mission? Just one. And that's what I want us to think about. Like, what have I done today relationally that could potentially contribute to me getting one step closer to my mission? One of the questions that we always ask on the Contagious Culture Podcast to our listeners is, what type of culture are you spreading? Like, really, are you spreading a culture where you don't really want to connect with people unless they can help you? Are you spreading a culture of possibility, of transformation, of empowerment? Because the energy you bring is the culture that you create. We want you to create a culture here within the Contagious Culture Podcast. We want you to review this episode. We want you to like it. We want you to subscribe to the channel, and we want you to share it with somebody in your world. That's Dan and Kyle on another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. We'll see you guys next episode.